see the path to the championship. I can see it.
Coca-Cola 600 belongs to Ryan Blaney.
Blaney's learned how to win over the last couple of months.
Blaney! Harmon! They spin behind him! It's going to be Blaney!
We're going to win this thing.
Ryan Blaney is going to win his way into the championship for...
You have to run a perfect race to get it.
Ryan Blaney is a NASCAR Cup Series champion!
What an unbelievable year. What an unbelievable playoffs for us.
This is the Team Blaney Podcast.
Welcome, everyone, to episode 153 of the Team Blaney Podcast. My name is Adam Rogers, and alongside me is co-host Steve Mez. This podcast is brought to you by fans for fans. Steve and I have been following the drivers of the Blaney racing family for 2 decades, and Team Blaney itself launched on social media back in 2014. Each weekly episode of the show offers an in-depth analysis of Ryan Blaney's latest NASCAR Cup Series race, plus news, notes, and special guest interviews all throughout the year. This week, we break down Team 12's run in the Brickyard 400 at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Steve, welcome back. Another episode of the Team Blaney Podcast. And right off the top, I want to say thank you to you and your wife, Kate, for holding down the fort last week. I was a little bit under the weather, wasn't able to come on and do the show, and I totally was jealous of you guys getting to talk about Ryan Blaney's win at Pocono. Such a great race, exciting finish, and so yeah, just off the top, thank you guys for taking over and doing another Team Mez takeover episode.
That was a perfect week for it, wasn't it? It was so much fun. Pocono is just near and dear to our hearts anyway, so it was cool to talk about all that fun stuff that happened and that great execution that looked like it was going to happen again this week.
So I was going to say, and that the perfect race that they ran at Pocono, it seems like they picked all of that up, picked up the similar strategy, picked up a similar race car and setup, and dropped it over to Indianapolis. And I think we talked throughout the week, after Ryan's win at Pocono with how good they were, whether that car and that speed and everything would translate over to the Brickyard. And from everything I saw, it seems like it really did. Now, so you guys have been to Indianapolis the last couple of years, watching them run the road course, or at least twice you've been there to see them run the road course in Indianapolis. What was it like to be there for the first time for the return of a crown jewel event on the oval? What was it like that for you guys?
Yeah, that, it was actually really exciting. It really, really was. The race, you have to take it for what it is, the way it's going to race, the way it is. It's not going to race like any other track because of the way it's configured. It's a momentum type of thing. It's a single file racing. And really, truthfully, now that tire wear is pretty even and they don't wear out, and they can't. At Indy, they got to be careful on tire wear anyway. It was going to be a fuel mileage race too. So, but the actual, like watching them roar down that main straightaway to start, heading to turn one and funnel down into turn one. And even once they did get single file, you could still tell each time they come by, if they closed the gap, gained a little bit on the guy in front of them. So it was a blast. The funny part is, like, people like talk about the attendance of the place, and it's 70-some thousand or whatever, but the place holds 220,000, and on an Indy 500 weekend, they get 250,000 with all the standing room only areas and stuff like that. And it's impressive for that. But for a NASCAR race itself, over 70,000 is a really huge attendance. We were talking before we started here with Daytona. What'd you say? Daytona is 110,000.
Yeah, 110, 120, something like that. Yeah.
We know Bristol's like in the 70 or 80,000 range, depending on how they've reconfigured things there. Talladega is probably pretty huge, especially with their infield. So the attendance being up for the first time in like 5 or 6 years up to that level was pretty huge. I guess the TV ratings that you usually like to look at were great. But Roger himself, that's another thing. Roger's recently bought this track, and you can tell the difference. The helpfulness of the employees, the yellow shirts, or what they call them, are everywhere. Ask a question, get it answered. Get you over to here, over to there. We were there for Saturdays, a lot of Saturday stuff. Um, the haulers and everything for the merch haulers and everything are on the inside of the track, so that's really kind of cool too. So you're actually on the grounds. But pretty clean. Everybody too. And then the setup for the garage area too. Setup where you can get within 20 or 30 feet of the garages to see everything going on in the garages. So yeah, it was just a fabulous weekend. So glad we got to try it, and hopefully, one of these years you'll get up there too.
Yeah, that was the plan. So it was kind of agonizing watching from home, not being able to be there since we had planned to be there. So it's going to be back onto the bucket lists, and hopefully be able to check that off next year. And I think so. There's a lot of talk about Crown Jewels this year, so I think that makes for you guys 3 out of the 4 now too, right? Because you've been to the Southern 500, you've been to the Coke 600, you've been to the Brickyard 400. Now I just need to get you down here to the date that you've been to the 400, but you need to get down here for the Daytona 500, which I've been to not countless, but 5 or 6 of those. So one of these years we'll convince you guys to come down for that race, and then you can check them all off because you've been to the other 3.
Yeah, we got to plan this a little more properly. That's all.
And now I'm on the opposite now. I need to get to the Brickyard to finish mine off too.
Finish it up, yeah. Although a lot of people were saying that the Bristol night race ought to become one of the Crown Jewels instead, and
I think we both got that. We both got
that. But I think that might be true. Right? The Bristol night race to me is huge, and especially since they moved it to the playoffs. Within the playoffs, it makes it even bigger.
So we all went into this race again after the performance that the 12 team had at Pocono and getting that victory and the speed they had with, super high hopes. And when they get to practice and qualifying, my hopes did not get any lower. My expectations did not get any lower because you know what? They ended up firing off pretty fast.
Yeah, Friday practice was Friday. It was one session. They didn't split it in any groups or anything like that. They gave them about 50 minutes. And so, they go out. Most everybody come out and they ran about 8 to 10 laps. And they Ryan ran about 10 laps here, and that the average for that 10 laps was in the top 10. But they did 2 different runs out on track, and at that point they were okay on the single lap, but the single lap was kind of deceiving because of the way this practice was set up. A lot of the guys were going to come out at the end of practice and do a mock qualifying run. So when Ryan does come out to do that mock qualifying run, it kind of gets messed up by somebody because he says, I had to abort it. You know who it was? Is that why you're smiling? I don't know.
I think it was one of the Spire cars because all I heard was a 7 on the radio. So I think you heard 77. So I think most likely the 77. So
yeah, messed up his mock qualifying run, which kind of stinks because you would think that they won't get another chance to do one here, but they go back out, so they cooled it off enough and did another one right before the session was over, and that one lap put in P2. So there it was. It says qualifying speed was there. It was 0.177 back of the 45, which was kind of weird that it was such a huge gap. And there were a bunch of huge gaps. It was kind of strange too. So, but they ran about 25 laps. The overall lap average speed, which is kind of interesting too. When you look on the NASCAR app, they do give you this average of all their laps together. Was P3. So second fastest on a single lap. Overall, with all the adjustments they made over the different runs, was the third best average, behind only 24 in the 11. So going into Saturday, everything looking pretty good. We get to Saturday's qualifying, and of course it's in Group B because we won the week before, and with the metric, which puts him on the inside lane, and he goes last. So basically get all the way down to that, and he just barely gets inside the top 5, but we're going to have a chance to run for the pole here. So going for the pole, he will end up going out, would be 6th overall, would be the first guy of the Group B guys. And the only one he really beats within his group is the 47. The 47 does not have a good lap. Something happens. So what ends up happening is Ryan will start the inside row, fourth position on the inside row, which is P7. The 45 did get the pole. These new qualifying rules, you need a slide rule and, I don't know what else to figure it out. Maybe one of calculus calculators.
It seems confusing. It really is. And it basically just puts you basically are competing against your group all the way up until whoever has the fastest lap. And this was brought up again on Denny Hamlin's podcast. I think it was, this week. And he actually just came out and said, the drivers wanted this. We wanted it. We like it. It's the most fair way to do it. So just leave it at that is basically what he said. He basically said that they don't want to have to compete against the cars that aren't in their own group, that it's not fair to do that. So whoever gets the pole gets the pole. And then they're happy that they line up, in order of their group after that. So he said, now there's a caveat. He said, if you're going to keep doing this Group A and Group B thing, I would say Denny and the rest of the drivers would probably much prefer a straight up qualifying though. But if they're going to do A and B, they see this as the most fair way to do it. But you are right. It can be confusing to understand.
Was there a point where they used to do a qualifying draw, okay? But wasn't there a point in time where they took the practice speed and did it that way?
I can't remember if that. I remember them taking practice speed and doing that with something with when there's been weather delays or something. But I'm not sure. That's an idea though,
and that's not. And the only problem with that idea, once again, is if you split them into two groups. So let's not split them into two groups. Let's do a 150-minute session. Just, you're still going to do one session. Instead of it being 20 and 20, you give them an extra 10 minutes, right? 150-minute session. You take their average speed over that whole time period and then line them up worst to fastest for the qualifying. The only time it ever really got bad was when things were so sensitive on the track where a cloud would come over halfway through a qualifying session and cool the track and give more grip, and then the cloud goes away. And I don't know if that really affects things that much anymore with these cars the way they are. But back then I can remember that happening. But
the actual time it was worse was when they were doing the group qualifying every week. that was when it got messed up. And they got to, what was that, Texas, where Austin Dillon got the pole because nobody ended up taking a lap in the final round. So, yeah.
Ryan in the truck series at Michigan, right? Ryan in the truck series at Michigan we got to the second group or whatever running for the pole. And I think it was he launched off a pit road and was the only guy who got back around to start a lap. And he got through turn 1 and turn 2, and they told him, shut it down. And he did like a 60-some, 70-some second qualifying lap because nobody else made it in time, and he got the pole. And that was in the truck series. I can't remember what year, but I know it was at Michigan.
That's
so
funny.
Don't bring that back.
But anyway, where did Ryan qualify again?
He ended up P7 overall. Like I said, within his group, right in front of the 47, ended up having something happen with his run. So we get to Sunday race day. Stages of 50, 100, 160. Fuel run says here 40 to 43 laps. That kind of depends on how good you are at fuel saving. And we know the Fords are good at fuel saving. To the rear, we had the 2-car because he had an issue in qualifying, hitting the wall. And the 19 had a tech violation. So he was going to get a pass-through penalty. And that was really strange there because he had passed through tech, and then they did something after tech. And I'm not sure what happened there. I'm not sure what they did to modify or unprove adjust. But
yeah, it didn't come out. So the last time we heard this was at Talladega. And actually, I saw it in progress and didn't know what I was watching. It was with the 5-car where they were pushing the car out to qualify, and somebody was manipulating like one of the pieces on the top of the car. So it sounded like it was a similar situation to that, but they weren't, transparent on what exactly the modification was or what they touched that NASCAR didn't like. Because basically they just put an official with your car after it goes through inspection, and they just keep watching you the rest of the way. And they saw something they didn't like. So unfortunately, right out of the gate, it almost sets the tone for the 19's weekend.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, they recover a little bit. So pit stall 16, just past the start finish line. 43 will be pitting in front of Ryan, but he has the opening that goes behind pit wall there behind him. So pretty good area to be. It worked for him last week at Pocono. That was the same kind of area it was in at Pocono. So 45 leads the field to green from the preferred inside lane. I wrote that way on purpose because heading into turn 1 at Indy, you have to be in the inside lane. That's just the way it is. If you're on the outside lane by turn 2, you will be second. Hopefully you can get a gap and get behind that guy. You don't want to be running side by side very long. By lap 3, Ryan, P7 here, lap 12, up to P6 as the field does get single file here. Now, what's interesting is watching these guys come up the front straightaway, going into turn 1. If they're going to make a pass, it's going to be in turn 1 for the most part, and it's going to be by getting underneath the guy by the time you get to turn 1. And that's where most of the passing happens. Lap 22 here, green flag pitting starts, and this is once again, this whole race was fuel strategy. How to save fuel within the stage to have a shorter pit stop and hopefully jump a couple guys and leapfrog a couple guys here. At lap 26, Ryan pits. It's a 2-tire stop. It's 5.072 seconds. And he was like 7th or 8th to start this cycle. So this is interesting because he does leapfrog a couple guys. 45 stays out for a long time here. Lap 29 is P28, but the cycle takes a while. It takes over 15 laps basically to complete. The 9 car gets the penalty here. I want to bring this up because we heard. Let me explain where we're sitting. We're sitting on the opening to pit road. We're all the way up on the inside of the track, and I've got my wife to my left and Jerry Mariotti and his wife Kirsten to my right. My wife and I have headphones on, so she will press the button and talk to me. It's a lot easier to do that. Extremely noisy there. But she's got Twitter open the whole time. And she gets things like that on Twitter. And she's like, Chase Elliott's having a conniption. He's going crazy over here. He's melting down. And she's reading me all the different things he's saying over the radio because somebody is reporting it on Twitter right away. And there was some rules violation that he said that's not what he read and that's not what he understood it. And I guess that has something to do with the blend line coming out of the pits, going between turns 1 and 2, or
yeah. So basically, there's you're coming out, and I forget what they call it, the lanes that they have, but basically they were told that in this email or in the directive that they were given over the weekend, and it was actually clarified, was that they were allowed to go up over, and they just said the white line. They didn't say which white line. Unfortunately, there was 2. So you were allowed to go up and over as you're arcing the corner to try to pick up some more speed before you go to blend. You can go over the first white line. You're not allowed to go over the second white line because after that, that's considered the racing surface. So the directive basically said you can arc the corner like that, but you cannot enter the racing surface. Well, he went up and over the top of the second white line, definitely kind of out onto the racing surface, then came back down into the lane before you blend. So it was pretty blatant. The 6 car did it as well. The 5 almost did. He got his right side tires onto that top white line, but they let him slide. So it was interesting, and it's good that you bring up this meltdown because of other radio traffic that we got to hear about the rest of the weekend and into Monday on social media about that we tend to hear about when it comes to Ryan's things. But at least Chase also had a moment that was widely shared in the audio and the text transcripts and things. So, but the driver of the 9 was not happy. Listening to the different podcasts between Denny and DBC and some other stuff, it seems like, and LaJoy's, on Stacking Pennies, he said, I thought, we all understood it pretty clear. Only 2 out of the, 38 plus people got violations for it. So, it was unfortunate. I mean, if that happened to Ryan, I'd feel a little bit different. But I mean, the 9's good enough to maybe come back from a mistake like that. So,
well, look at the two guys who do get penalized and where they end up later on. So yeah, I mean, they recover. By lap 41, up to P3. Like I said, the 45 I think stayed out way too long here. Lap 50, 11 wins the stage. Ryan P3. Pretty good start to the race. Moved our way up. Like I said, running single file and doing fuel conservation doesn't, it's not really great racing, but it is some sort of form of racing, and that's what they were doing. They go ahead and pit here, 4 tires, and they're waiting on fuel. So, I mean, I wrote down the pit time. It is 12.41, but it has nothing to do with nothing to do with the pit stop itself. But they were just waiting on the gas tank.
And they're waiting because, as a reminder, they took 2 tires and they're stop in between. Yeah. So,
I wonder if that 2-tire stop is the one that almost took Ryan Flores' thumb. Did you see that today?
I did hear about that. Yeah, he spun around on the front because he got his thumb caught in the hood pin.
Yeah, because the way the 2-tire stop works for him, he comes across the front of the car. He's changing the right front, and the car does not go or should not go until he gets past the front of the nose. Well, they cut that as close as they can usually, and literally Ryan is taking off as sometimes Flores is almost bouncing off that left front of the car. And there's video that the Stacking Pennies people posted on the NASCAR YouTube channel that shows that he almost got his thumb caught in the hood pin. And I think Corey usually said something about that Hassler wouldn't care if the finger went down.
He'd rather have his thumb going with him than having to stop.
So, coming out. Yep. Yeah. So we get to lap 56 for the restart here with the 45 leading, and Ryan is in P18 at this point. By lap 58 up to P11, and like I said, a lot of these passes that they did make, once they got spread out, were pretty cool. Lap 70, we get a debris caution for the 51's tire, and this is a 2-tire stop here. This might be the one because this was a really fast 2-tire stop. This was like 4.8 seconds. So. Maybe this was the thumb incident. At lap 75, we're restarting from P10, and caution in turn 2 is the 41 hits into the 24, the 16, and 21 are involved. So restarting at lap 79 here with 23 leading, and Ryan is up to 8th. At lap 86, he's up to 5th. Lap 97, he gets himself to 4th. And at lap 100, the 23 wins the stage on a good fuel strategy for him. Ryan, P4. So P3, P4.
Here's what I want to point out. So last week's strategy at Pocono, where they win the race, worked out perfectly. But with this strategy there, they gave up stage points in order to work their fuel mileage strategy there. I love how Jonathan and the team came up with the strategy this week where they were able to still maximize stage points and still be in position for a good finish at the end of the race. So however those calculations worked or however they came up with that game plan, kudos to them, because at the end of the day, at the end of this race, those stage points are huge. And we'll go over why when we give the update on where Ryan's at in the standings.
Now, this next pit stop is a 4-tire stop in fuel, and it's a 9.543. So this one here, they're not waiting on fuel. They obviously still have some in the tank. From good conservation during the stage. Some of the others take 2 tires here, and more stay out even. I'm trying to flip this a little bit. And so they restart at lap 104 from 21st. And then we get a caution for the 19 hitting the 5. The 4 and the 54 are the ones who end up getting the damage here. They restart lap 110 here from 15. And they're in the outside lane here. And this is where the 77 goes 3 wide middle. And this is one of my mea culpas right here, because I went on, Twitter and I reacted and was reactionary. And I've kind of had it explained to me and shown to me in a couple different lights now that they're going into one and there is a gap. And the 77 car, he gets a run. He gets a push from the inside lane. He gets a push from behind. And instead of just trying to push the guy in front of him, he sees the gap and tries to shoot the gap. Now, problem with the gap is it's not it's a full gap. It's a full car length. He gets in there. He does not get very far up, but he gains a position or two as he does it. And on these restarts, that's actually pretty huge, really. He is to Ryan's left rear quarter panel. And Ryan tries to close the door, but it's too late. So some people say, well, Carson was being a wild man. But on the other hand, you need to protect the inside. You need to protect your inside going into turn one. And there were guys who, Ryan being one, who left the door open. What was funny is the reaction over the radio, and this is, once again, we're going to talk about reactions here. Reaction over the radio by Ryan is, what is that idiot doing? But in hindsight, or when he watches video afterward, he might not feel quite the same way because it's something Ryan might have tried to do himself, in that situation. So we react right away with what an idiot. But on the other hand, when you see it and you see it from the other perspective, you realize that he tried to make a bold move, yes, but Ryan should have closed that door about a half second earlier. If Ryan closes that door, then all the 77 does is gets to Ryan's full rear bumper and just hits him, moves him forward, helps push. But by leaving it open just a little bit, he kind of almost hooked himself, which
he didn't almost, he did.
He hooked himself.
And like you said, I've heard a few different analysis of this too, and part of it was, the 77 was there, didn't necessarily have full position, and Ryan 100% comes down on him and almost spins himself out. Luckily the 3, I think, was to the inside and straightens Ryan out. He doesn't get the damage, but some other folks have said, maybe the 77 should know that turn's going to funnel, and that move, no matter what, wasn't going to turn out well. So, and it doesn't turn out well in the end for the 84 and then the teammate over there in the 22 who took a huge hit into the wall. So that was unfortunate, but luckily for the 12, he was able to fight on without any damage. And they had a conversation about whether they thought there was damage at all or the tires were okay. Gave him a thumbs up. So
the save was awesome on TV because he ended up kind of sideways and then he straightened it back out. And Tim right away thought that the tires probably got scuffed up pretty bad. Ryan says, I was only on it for like half a second. So Ryan didn't want to come in at all. And, they kind of talked about what, didn't want to take tires at all. Didn't want to, give up any track position. Like you said, the 3, the 22, and the 84 do get collected in this. But they do come in for fuel only. And it's NASCAR said it was 2.20 seconds they were in there. I thought I heard like a 3 count from Jonathan, 1, 2, 3, go, go, go. So, they were fuel only, trying to maintain where they were, but try to have enough to get to the end. And they're restarting at lap 115 here from P10. And this was, so what do we got? 160 total laps. So we're 45 from the end, right? So,
and that was the last stop, right? That he made?
That's it. So we're looking at, can we make it, right? And
I
like
think
I said earlier, the fuel window was 40 to 42 or 43. So
we're going to stretch. And TV, didn't really even mention it. And I think a lot of people missed the fact. And even I think Denny kind of got a little confused on his show as to what they did. Like, I think everyone missed the fact that they did fuel only, because they were one of the only ones that really did fuel only on this stop. And I thought it was weird that they didn't at least put 2 on. But what it did do was it brought, and they talked about this actually all day long, is you want to be the first car out on your strategy, which that's what essentially Ryan does. He comes out ahead of the people that took two, and I don't know that anybody else. Maybe somebody way further back did fuel only at this point, but yeah, he leapfrogs that. So much like the way that they were able to jump ahead at Pocono last week, this was kind of them calling their shot here to try to do that, and this immediately, puts them in contention to win the race. And that's kind of when we're finally kind of realizing everything that's coming together here. And I talked about going into this race with high expectations. Now I'm like, this is it. They have a legitimate chance to win the Brickyard 400.
Yeah, so here's what ends up happening next. Okay, so that lap 115 is this restart from P10. Some of the leaders, as soon as they come around, they go ahead and they pit some of the guys in front of them because they're going to try and get their gas, get back out, and then be on once again on a different strategy, but a strategy where they think they can get to the end without having to do anything different. But Ryan and a lot of those guys are in fuel save mode here from here on in. By lap 124, he's up to third. And then at the next lap, we get this caution for the 19 car. And it's the 6, the 31, and the 12. 1, 2, 3. That's the way they're lined up at this point. And the 6 pitted before Ryan. So we know the 6 can't make it. Okay. And I think the 31 was also on that strategy. 31 doesn't really become a player in this as it goes along.
Especially since they basically, Ryan, after they did the fuel only stop, was slightly concerned and asking, like, based on the way he was saving fuel before the stop, like, what does he have to do after that? And Jonathan relays that message, and Ryan basically says, I got to do even way more to make it stretch now. So, it made me nervous, kind of hearing something like that. But and especially with the way things went at Gateway, totally different race, totally different track. But I knew they were in it to, like I said before, they called their shot, and this is how they're going to try and win the race.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I have it written down here. Ryan was pitted at lap 111. The 6 pitted at lap 101. So the 6 was like, way shorter.
Yeah, but I forgot to mention that in saying all of that, which there was just no chance. Like, if the 12 was already going to be like right on the edge, just barely being able to make it, then there was absolutely no way, no matter how masterful Keselowski is at saving fuel, that there'd be any chance for him to make it the distance.
Yeah. So we restart lap 130. So we've got 30 laps to go. And the 6 takes the lead. Ryan from the low lane gets by the 31 in the outside. So now Ryan's P2. From there to lap 150, they're in fuel conservation mode. And everybody pretty much is, except for one guy. And that's the one that they're going to talk about on TV this whole time, because they showed him, and the number 5 is passing this guy, and the number 5 is passing that guy. And Alan Bestwick is the track announcer at Indianapolis. It's great to hear him. But that's what he's talking about. And number 5 passes another one. Well, the number 5 wasn't the fastest car of the day. And the number 5 had a fuel strategy where he had fuel and he was passing everybody. Everybody else was a second to 2 seconds a lap slower because of the way they were trying to all conserve fuel to try and get their finish. So at 10 laps to go, they tell Ryan, you can go for it. At this point, the 5 car had moved to third place behind Ryan, and Ryan was chasing the 6. Well, now we're going to push. We're going to push the 6, and we're going to make sure the 5 doesn't get by us. And during this time period, the 5 tries, he can't get there. So as
good
fast
battle.
As everybody,
good battle too.
Yeah, but as fast as everybody thinks he was that whole time before that, he can't get by the 12. So.
And I'm thinking, this is what I'm guilty of getting excited, is that I am excited because you did see, the 5 got to his bumper 2 or 3 times, wasn't able to make the pass. And I know in my mind, 0 chance the 6 can make it to the end of this race. And I'm like, he's going to win back-to-back. I'm thinking already, I'm like, second crown jewel. He's going to win the Brickyard 400. Then at this point, you're just waiting to see, but like, what's going to happen here? I'm like, everyone's strung. I was thinking everyone's strung out. It should be clean to the finish.
I mean, my wife is on Twitter And they're talking about the communication to the 6 car on Twitter, but they're telling him we're short. We're going to be short, And on they don't really tell Ryan that a lot, but at one point there is like a be careful of the 6 because he's going to run out here soon. He should be running out really soon. Get ready. So to kind of like let it be known so that if you got to make an evasive move, you can make an evasive move and not crash yourself, into him. And it looked like you said, we were all starting to think, boy, this looks great because the 6, as long as the 6 doesn't run out in a bad position, runs out in a spot where Ryan can get by him, the 5 is never going to get by Ryan, and this thing is ball game. And then we get to, lap 157, and the 8 car. Was he running? Would you say he was running 6th, I think, at the time?
Yeah, he says he was being aggressive because he was trying to get his team a top 5 finish.
Which what we said is he would have had if he'd have stayed on the track and let the 6 car
let the 6 run out of fuel. And Ryan's post after this race, I think he just said pain, and that's what it was right at this moment because at this moment after this, it's just going to be chaos, and you don't know what's. And honestly, what does happen, I guess I didn't necessarily expect to happen, but still, I knew at this moment Ryan's best chance to win this race was gone.
This was the part that was really weird because they're going to a green-white checkered, and Ryan has been told already that the 6 should run out at any minute. Well, you don't expect it to happen under the caution.
And the 12's close too. That's my other thought. I'm like, when's Ryan just going to run out as well? That's the other part in the back of my mind.
They told him they thought they had at least enough for one more green-white checkered even. So, so you get to the choose cone and your first thought is, well, I don't want to be behind the 6 for this restart. A lot of times the second guy being behind the control car, at Indy is not a bad move because you might get past the guy on the outside if you get a good start, and then you'll be running 1-2, and then you have a chance maybe to pass him at some point. But with the situation the way it was, your first thought is, well, I don't want to get caught behind him. What if he runs out of gas as he's trying to restart and stacks the restart, and all of a sudden he stacks the restart, but I'm on the outside, I get by him and I take the lead. So the choose cone is correct. It is the way you should have done it because you knew the situation. You knew that the 6 car was going to run out somewhere in the next 2 laps. We're sitting there at the entrance to pit road as they slowly crawl up, and the pace car had pulled off already, and they're crawling up, and all of a sudden, and we watched the 6. He was wiggling coming up to it, now. Was he wiggling because he was cleaning his tires up? No, not at that point. He was wiggling because, from what we understand afterward, is that the fuel wasn't getting in the pickup. Allegedly, they said he had enough fuel for one more lap. He was trying to get to the white flag, and if he could have got to the white flag with the lead, then he was hoping something bad would happen after that, or what ends up happening at the end of the race where they let them get to the white flag before they actually call a caution, which happens later on. But he just pulls off. And all of a sudden, this next bit of mayhem.
I'm yelling at my TV as soon as he pulls off because I know what has just happened here. And we'll talk about a couple circumstances here, but the main one, regardless, is Ryan now is on the outside lane.
Yeah.
And
it doesn't matter. He is the control car. And the only way this really would work for him is if he controlled the restart to such an extent where he got out in front of the inside car by turn 1.
Who is now Larson because that row gets to move up.
Gets to move up. So Larson does what's proper and moves up. And this is the part where I got a tweet out there and it got a bunch of great responses. And God bless all the fans of Ryan that are with us on this, as frustrated as he was and we were and everything at that situation a moment. Bad racing luck is what this ends up being. It looks, though, because of the way that Larson rolls up to that position to take the inside lane, that he jumps the restart. It looks like he literally gets this rolling restart that you wouldn't think, he'd be allowed to have, and it looked like he got to the end of the restart zone just in front of Ryan, and Ryan is technically supposed to be the control car now that the 6 is pulled off. To me, I almost wanted to see the 5 roll up there and then brake check a hair to give the control car maybe a quarter of a car length to control the restart, but that never happened.
No.
Now, once again, another mea culpa, because I react in that moment like a lot of people do, and like Ryan does on the radio during that next part of the lap. They do get, they get through the restart. Ryan can, the 5 does kind of control it and get to turn 1 in front of Ryan. And the 45 actually, I think, almost beats Ryan to the corner too from the second row. And then they get the accident behind them. I don't even know who was in the accident, to tell you the truth. I know that it tore up the wall. And they had to about
42. Yeah, I know the 42 took the biggest hit, but
yeah.
But with the restart, like the biggest thing, and Ryan's upset on the radio, and part of it is the fact is, and he mentioned this post race, really is just the fact that he didn't get at that point. So what? And I think he even said it on the radio too, where they told about being the control car and that kind of a thing. It doesn't matter. He said, I'm on the outside. Like at this point, it doesn't matter. Being on the outside is such a detriment at this track. Like he thought the fair thing they could have done was called off the restart, and choose again. And that, there's nothing in the rule book to do that. They've never done that before. Just throwing things, we've had lots of discussions with other fans throughout the last couple of days. And I'm like, the only thing I could come up with is they wave it off and then say, okay, Ryan, as the leader, you have lane choice. We're not going to make everybody else choose again, but then you can choose. And he would 100% go to the bottom. But it's still, again, there's nothing in the rule book that says they should do that. And they've never done that before. As you mentioned before we started analyzing the restart itself, it just ended up being really bad racing luck as to what happens here, because it's just he goes from doing everything perfectly, lining up to win the race, but the 6 pulls off and destroys it. And I don't want to be mad at Keselowski, but I'm mad at their team as a whole for not. And they're not worried about the 12. They're not worried about the 5. They're worried about their chance to win the race. So I can understand that, but it just destroyed. There was no way from that point that where the 12 was going to win the race. Yeah. As soon as the 6 pulls off, with a football field before the restart zone.
So I didn't answer anybody on Twitter who was adversarial to my opinion. Okay, I had my opinion at that point in moment. And it was definitely an excitable thing. I hear the radio, and I'm guilty, like any fan would be, of just being angry and being upset and thinking that things were taken away, and thinking that somebody cheated too, because it, to some extent it looked like that. Okay, and what was nice about we didn't record on Monday night like we usually do, and it was kind of a good thing that we didn't. We get other opinions. Denny Hamlin himself goes on his podcast and it says on his podcast he has to look at the data, and then Monday night he's posting all these pictures of the data and then explaining them to you. Okay, and I had some people reach out to me and explain some data to me too, and it gives you a perspective that you don't get during the broadcast. All you get is the blurbs, and you get the the bleep the radio, and you get that stuff. So you get the excitement during the broadcast, and you get that anger, if it was your guy during the broadcast, but you don't always get all the detail during the broadcast like you should. And this is kind of interesting. According to this, going off the data, Ryan actually rolled into the gas slow, but he did go first. The problem was he was in second gear when he launched. Okay, Larson reacted and was in first gear. and his speed climbed quicker, so he had more acceleration because he was climbing through an easier gear. The leader had been first gear all day, so that probably was a kind of a little bit of a mistake, being in second gear, not in first gear. The restart was clean. It was just, a bad deal because he was stuck up top, which basically sucks for that track. Ryan was 1.5 miles an hour faster when they both launched. The visual looks like that because he's in first gear, and the five's in first gear, and his RPMs, are different than the second gear being bogged down. And Larson, the one thing that Larson does really well from that point forward is he climbs through the gears really well to get that great launch getting down into turn one. So, it looked strange. It looked to me like he jumped it because it kind of looked like he rolled, but he was rolling because he was, like I said, he was in a little bit different gearing too. So, it's so funny because we were in the stands talking and during the 17-minute delay, and Jerry might said, Brad running out of gas is exactly what we wanted. He was just about a quarter mile away from where he needed to run out of gas. He needed to run out of gas right down there, either going into one or between one and two, at least where some people could have got around him and maybe not caused an accident. But even if there was one more green checker because of the accident, but Ryan was controlling that green-white checker from that point forward, I thought we had a great chance, and actually ends up Ryan has enough gas to make it that distance. So, I sent out that tweet, and it was a very angry tweet, and I am very appreciative of all the people who replied in a positive manner or tried to, give us the same, the feedback and felt the same way we did. Because at that moment, I felt that same way. And Ryan does a great job when he gets out of the car and says that whole thing about I'm angry, but I don't know who to be angry at, and now in retrospect, I'm the same way. I mean, it's racing luck. It's the racing gods. People have pointed out certain things that you've had happen to you that have happened in your favor during all these years. So you have to kind of sometimes take the good with the bad. When we get to the end of this, they re-rack them. People are saying Ryan's sour grapes and so on and so forth. But you know what? If your guy is in that same situation, your guy is going to say some things like that too. We watched Tyler Reddick these last couple of weeks have situations after the race where he was upset and mad at himself and all those things. Every driver goes through those things. And it's so funny because they want to attack a guy who's the champion, for feeling like that. That part I didn't get by people but that's Twitter for you. Twitter's a mess sometimes. But they do a second restart, and Ryan can't get there. The 45 does get to the inside of Ryan. 45 takes second. Ryan finishes third. The Golden Boy wins. But during that whole situation, there's a car going down the backstretch. They're going down the backstretch, and there's a car turned around sideways in the middle of the track, and he can't move. And they wait till they come all the way around to the start-finish line and then call the caution after they get the white flag.
I mean, I saw that coming a mile away. I don't know about you, but I said there's no way they throw the caution until after the 5 crosses. And that's not a conspiracy theory. That was more of like, let's just put an end to this chaos.
You could have another lap or two where everybody's run out of gas during the in-betweens. So the worst part is because you have that expectation near the end that you're going to win the race, that, you've played the strategy correct. You were in the right position. You were did everything where you needed to be to win this race, and it kind of gets snatched away. But overall, the day itself, 3rd place in the first stage, 4th place in the second stage, 3rd place finish. The team of the summer is still rolling, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah. I mean, I was and I said this in our Team Blaney post, I was absolutely devastated, and just in like a sad way. I know there was a lot of other Ryan fans out there that were angry. They're angry at NASCAR. They're angry at the 5. It's a conspiracy to make sure a Hendrick car wins. All this stuff about that, and I would try to share my perspective with other people, like, and say, like, I think if you are angry right now, you need to shift your anger towards somebody else. And I pointed at the 6 car, and ultimately I pointed at the 8.
8 car, yeah.
Ryan wins the Brickyard 400 if the 8 does not crash into the 11. Now, maybe Brad wins. Maybe somehow Brad makes it all the way to the end. Ryan's best chance to win the Brickyard 400 was if the 8 does not crash. So I was trying to encourage people to shift their anger at least maybe to somewhere else. The 5 did everything by the book, by the rules. He got lucky. He had the better racing luck, I would say. He still had to execute. And honestly, his team, I mean, as amazing as you can say Ryan's and Jonathan's fuel strategy was, the 5, and they were kind of forced into the strategy they did because of a mistake they made leaving a wheel loose early in the race, much like actually how Ryan's first victory happened at Pocono, by leaving a wheel loose that put them off strategy. He was in the different mode to where he had the fuel and could drive through the field, and those two strategies basically met, and the 5 wins out. So I'm glad we did have an extra day to analyze the data a little bit more, hear some more perspectives, and feel a lot better. And quite honestly, by the evening on Sunday, I felt a lot better, and it has to do with something I've been harping on for the last 3 or 4 weeks, and that's the regular season point standings. You mentioned it. This was an enormous day for the 12 team when it came to the points, because multiple people ahead of Ryan in points had some bad days, including the 24 William Byron, the 11 of Denny Hamlin, Martin Truex Jr., all those people that are kind of racing around Ryan in the regular season standings. And I've been saying for weeks that they need to get to 5th. It's within reach. Well, guess what, Steve? The 12 team now, with this amazing race, with the win last week, incredible race today with the stage points and the finish, owns the 5th position right now in the NASCAR Cup Series standing. So it just took 3 or 4 weeks since the team got hot to vault up the standings where they were. So currently, Ryan is in the 5th position. He jumped up 2 spots from 7th to 5th. He's now 73 points back of the current points leader, which is now Kyle Larson. So he supplants William Byron and Martin Truex Jr. now and gets to 5th. And that is so important, because when they go to reset for the playoffs, they get extra bonus points, bonus playoff points that they will carry throughout the playoffs. And I think I saw Bob or somebody post after the race, like where they would be at with playoff points if it started now. And I think it said Ryan was at 17 or 19 or something like that. After they get the bonus points at the reset, it's just so important for him to do that. It'd be great if he picked up the win today too, and got those 5 more, and then still ended up in 5th here. But on the day at Indy, Ryan actually finished the day with the same amount of points as the 5 car did with their win. So I can't even explain how excited I am that they've got to 5th here. William Byron is in the 6th position, 95 points back. So Ryan has a pretty decent buffer between himself and the 24 car. So now, obviously, we're going to be going on this Olympic break for a couple weeks here. But when things ramp back up again at Richmond in the next couple of races, now it's almost like they need to, I don't want to say they need to be on the defense, but they might be points racing a little bit more to try to hold this position, because it's going to be really, really important when they reseed.
How far from 4th are they in the?
So Denny Hamlin right now is in 4th at 43 back. So 43, 53. They're like 30 points out of 4th. It's still possible. It's possible to get to 4th.
Yeah. 5 more races, or so it's.
Four. I think there's 4 more left. So it's possible. And Hamlin, quite honestly, has been on a little bit of a tough streak. He's run really well in every single race and had some bad finishes, though. So it's possible. But I thought getting to 5th was really going to be a long shot. But this 12 teams put together such an incredible run in the summer, because they are hashtag team of the summer, that they got there. It's really impressive. And like I said earlier, it's great that they were able to come up with a strategy in this race in Indianapolis to where were able to get stage points and still come home almost with the trophy, but with at least a 3rd place finish. So you're feeling better now, Steve? Was that therapeutic? Was it cathartic? Was it?
Yeah.
Got to talk through it.
I got to talk through it. I want to be, I'm very thankful for those who reached out and kind of gave me that little bit different perspective too, to talk to them about it and to get that inside, because that's the thing too, is these are people on the inside. These are people who are there at the track who do things, and they give you that little more that the emotion of the moment. You lose that. You lose that. The emotion of the moment. You're not paying attention to details, or you're not paying attention to something that may or may not have happened. And especially being live at the track like that, I was really like just, feeling it with the people around me and so forth. At home it's a little bit different. Sometimes you get the replay. And even though they have like replay boards there, you're not paying attention and you're listening to what you got in your ear. And, you're hearing Ryan rant a little bit and so forth, but justifiably so. And every one of the podcasts say that justifiably so. He's angry, because it's a racing thing that, for as many times as you think that these things have went the wrong way, they've went the right way too for Ryan in his career, Look
at Pocono last week. Yeah, I mean, everything lined up perfectly, and they win the race last week. One little thing changes, they don't win.
They were short on fuel when they come off pit road at Pocono, and then they get caution, right? Yep. And then all of a sudden they're good on fuel, right? I was going to bring up the Roval, the initial Roval, because he's running 3rd the initial Roval, and he's a couple seconds back of those guys. He's not even in like shouting distance of them when they start running into each other a couple 100 yards from the start finish line, and he becomes the benefactor of that. So there are these moments, and like I said, there are some bad ones but you shouldn't dwell on them too long, because there are so many good things that have happened too. And right now, this team every week has a chance to win every race they're in. And that's the best thing you can do, is show up every week and not have an off week, and you could look back and say, sure, they should have 4, maybe 5 wins right now, but they do have the 2, and they can keep being in the middle of everything every week. This in 2 weeks from now, Richmond, and then Michigan, and let's just keep doing this, every week being a top 5 team with a chance to win or figured out a strategy, or, being the best car out there and winning it. So, just all those things come together. It's fabulous to watch this early in the season too, because I say this early in the season because last year at this point of the year, they were just kind of like going along, and scoring some good finishes, but not really like, but right now it just feels like every week they show up, they have a chance to win.
It's definitely been the difference in 2024, and it's crazy to think, when they, this team won the championship last year, that I feel like they're even better this year. So, looking forward to the playoffs. Looking forward to see how much more they can move up in the point standings before it gets to that reset. But let's wrap up our talk of the Brickyard 400, and we're going to do that by recapping the week in the Team Blaney NASCAR Fantasy Live League. And Steve, I had an awesome week in fantasy. It's been a long time since I've had a week this good. There actually was a point where I think prior to Hamlin having to pit for fuel at the toward the end of the race, where I think I was leading the standings for a majority of the race. So take a look at my starting lineup. I had Chase Elliott, got me 36 points. Tyler Reddick got me 46. Blaney got me 49. Larson got me 49. Hamlin got me 23. and I had Byron in the garage. So I actually made a swap here. I did start the race with Ryan in the garage and Byron as a starter. When Byron crashed out, I was able, at least of sound mind, to make that swap, and that worked out really well for me because in my starting lineup with Blaney and Larson, I had the two highest point getters. Feature matchups, I picked Ryan over Truex. That was right. I picked Bowman over Keselowski. That was wrong. So that's the only one of the group I got wrong. I picked Reddick over Elliott. That was right. And I picked Gibbs over Logano. And that was right. Ended up with 233 total points. And in a 5-way tie for the third position this week in fantasy. So that's kind of crazy. Ended up being, looks like 12 points out of winning. So it was that close. So I think if Hamlin had a little bit better of a day, I might have got my first fantasy win of the year. But hey, yeah, that didn't actually happen. But I'll take third. Great week for me. How did things stack up for you in fantasy?
Yeah, you know what? Not bad actually. I made a change before the end of the second stage just to try to shake things up a little bit, and it was probably the wrong move. Although in hindsight, it only ended up being like a 4-point difference. But I put Truex back in because he had circulated back up to the front, and he had gotten 8 stage points in finished 8th in stage 2. So, he got some stage points. But I had Chastain, Bell, Gibbs, who was kind of end up being one of the weak links, and then Bubba Wallace, which he was the fourth best point getter on the day. So, it just wasn't a real strong lineup, just kind of the way some of the things happened. But I did have Ryan over Truex. I had Brad over Bowman. I had Tyler Reddick over Chase Elliott. My only bad one was I had Logano beating Gibbs, and that accident took Logano out of that. So good enough for what? I think 40th on the day. Still kind of maintaining that near the top 20, which is good.
Yeah, 40th on the day, 159 points earned. So let's take a look at the top 10 in points earned this past week at Indianapolis Motor Speedway. 10th, we got Clyde's Chicken Pit Racing at 220 points. 9th was DT Daytona 12, 223. 8th was Vans 12 with 224 points earned. And then here's this 5-way tie for third, 233 points earned with Charlie Abu, Nellis Straightaway, Go 12 Go, JD Racing, and my team, Team Blaney host Adam. In second was Penske Fan 24 with 243 points earned. And the winner on the weekend by 2 points, Zero Schlitz Given, 245 points. So congratulations to them for winning the week at Indianapolis. Let's take a look at the overall standings now in the Team Blaney NASCAR Fantasy Live League. Let's scroll. So Mez 12, you are in the 20th position, 4,119 points earned. And look at me, one good weekend, and here I am vaulting up to 26. I think it was in the 40s or something like that last week. Team Blaney host Adam, 26th position, 3,989 points. So top 10 though. JD Racing in 10th, 4,256, and 9th is this week's winner, Zero Schlitz Given, 4,262. 8th is Factory of Sadness 6 with 4,290 points, and 7th Penske Fan 24, 4,305 points. 6th is Blaniac 10, 4,332. 5th is Racer SF 4,348, and 4th is Frank Fan 12 through 4,355. Third is Charlie Abu, 4,359. Second is Alyssa C, 4,365 points. And closing the gap on Go Larson, who is in the first position with 4,386 points. Normally, I would say that brings us to this week's race. But there is no NASCAR Cup Series race this coming week. So you're going to have to find entertainment elsewhere. Maybe that's going to be with the Olympics because that's what's happening. NBC has the Olympics for the next couple of weeks. So that means that NASCAR goes on a 2-week hiatus. Good luck and congratulations to all those crew members and team members and shop workers and stuff that are going to hopefully get a full week off or at least several days off over the next couple of weeks to get some rest and relaxation because that's it. This is the the only off weekends of the year for the Cup Series, and they're going to have to hit the ground running when we do get back in a couple of weeks, and that's going to be at Richmond. So, not sure what that means for us the next couple of weeks. We may pop up with a surprise episode or something. Maybe we'll do an interview. But if not, we'll probably just point you towards some of the interviews we've already done this year. If you check out our YouTube channel and look into our archives, if you are, needing some sort of a NASCAR fix or something to fill your weekly podcast gap, if you're a regular listener of ours and you don't have something, tons of interviews that we have in our archives. If you look through the podcast app, or if you want to watch the video versions, check out YouTube. There's a tab on there that says interview specifically, and you can go and rewatch one of those, listen to one of those. We've interviewed nearly every member of Team 12. We just got a couple more to get to, but they've got a lot of interesting stories. But Steve, what do you got on tap? I don't know. It's weird when we have a one off week, but now we're going to have two in a row, and we're going to have to figure out what to do with ourselves.
I think there's some Formula One next weekend, so I'm going to be sort of okay for at least an hour or two there. But I don't know. Maybe I'll do. Go ahead.
I was going to say there's an ARCA race here or there if you get real desperate. But I always joke about you, whether like it gets to Sunday and you're sitting at home and whether you keep reaching for your notebook or not, and then just start, taking notes on your surroundings just to stay, stay fresh.
The dog just moved to the other side of the room. She was a little loose on the turn there. I don't know. I probably try to do something with TikTok. I've been getting some nice views on TikTok with our TikToks. Leave us a note on that if you watch our TikToks at all, and if there's anything you want to see us try and do with them. Maybe I'll try and do something, another question type thing like we've done a couple times now. So give us some feedback on that somewhere else, even in the Discord chat or something. I had somebody I tried to do a live from Indy for a couple seconds there, and I was just like showing the scene or whatever, and then somebody tried to join, but it was nobody I knew, and I don't even know how that works, to tell you the truth. So maybe we'll try something like that where we'll do a live or something, and then maybe you'll join in, or maybe we'll have maybe Superfan Justin or something. We'll have him join in or something, because I'm sure he's going to be looking for something to do too these next couple weeks. Dale's racing tonight too, from what I understand, at Lernerville too. So.
Don Martin Memorial.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the thing. If you're, I know. So down here in Florida, this time of year, some of the local tracks actually shut down because of the heat, and they kind of push their schedules to the outer parts of the year where it's a little bit cooler. But, all across the country, plenty of local short tracks that are running over the weekend. So if you are more of a diehard NASCAR fan and you haven't gone out to a short track, I know even, Justin, some folks have never been out to a dirt track before. Take this opportunity. You got 2 weekends where you got some, you're going to want to get your racing fix, and that's an opportunity to do that. Plus you get to support, racers and a track in your local community. And, I grew up at Sharon Speedway that the Blaney family owns and operates, and wouldn't trade any of those, decade that I spent there for anything. It was amazing. Set up my fandom, and it might inspire you to go more. So that'd be a great opportunity to take the next couple of weeks and check out maybe your local racing scene and see what's going on out there, because it might surprise you, and you might become a regular at a track near you. So Steve, I said this was a therapeutic episode. I'm glad we got to talk through it. It's kind of hard to get down when you're rooting for a team that's the defending NASCAR Cup Series champion, a team that has been in it to win nearly every single race for the last 5 or 6 weeks. They've picked up 2 wins.
Team of the summer.
Yeah, they are the team of the summer right now. So I'm really glad we got a day to think about it. I was worried this might be one of those downer episodes that we have, but how can you be, that upset about a 3rd place finish, 5th place in the standings, 2 wins in the bank, and an opportunity to go out there and be the first team to go back-to-back in this format of the Cup Series Championship playoff. So that's what we have to look forward to. We're going to have 2 weeks off here. So I said, go out and enjoy those. enjoy the weather, enjoy time with your family. But I want to thank you, everyone, once again for tuning into this episode of the Team Blaney podcast. You can interact with us on Facebook and X at Team Blaney, and on Instagram and TikTok at team.blaney. We also like to encourage you to support the Ryan Blaney Family Foundation. Ryan's official charitable organization benefits brain health causes like UPMC Sports Medicine and the Alzheimer's Association. To learn more, visit ryanblaneyfamilyfoundation.org or follow them on Facebook, X and Instagram. And shout out to the Ryan Blaney Family Foundation. They were on hand. They're in Indianapolis, and you got to catch up with them a little bit.
Yeah, that was kind of cool. They did their T-shirt that they do at Indianapolis. That was part of the ticket package. All you had to do was log in when you went to buy your tickets, and I think it was $12 for a T-shirt. And Patty once again there running the booth. And I from what I understand, that the people were in so much demand that Flag and Anthem has already put up something where you can pre-order, and they're going to make some more of those T-shirts for everybody. So if you get a chance to buy the famous purple T-shirt from the Family Foundation, please do so. Once again, it's Ryan's cause, but it's a cause it's near and dear to all our hearts. So if you get a chance to do that, and coming in this summer, I know at the Lou Blaney Memorial coming up, they'll be there for that too. So any chance you get to help the Ryan Blaney Family Foundation, please do so.
So for my co-host Steve Mez, I'm Adam Rogers. We'll catch you next time here on the Team Blaney podcast.
Good night, Mooresville. Have a good vacation. Check out the TikTok.
Well, thanks everybody for coming. I hope you enjoyed it.